So once you've started recording, okay, so let's get going. So I'm gonna set us up for the day and how it's gonna go. So want to welcome everybody to Triple Threat Panel, one of Advent's signature events. This panel draws on perspective from three great people on one topic, and it helps us all when we learn from different perspectives how to, gain more knowledge, skills, and connections and different perspectives. So today our topic is connection and community during COVID. Normally this event is in person, but over the last year we've had to switch to Zoom as so many people have. So I thought it was a perfect topic when we're all kind of in the same boat. Just to let you know who I am, I'm Lisa Speer, and I run a strategic branding business called Speerhead Solutions, and I'm also the host of the Branding BFF podcast. And I help new businesses and established businesses have a strong brand that's holistic from the visual, verbal, and experiential. So as the moderator, I want to also welcome Mike Barugel. He helps with all the behind the scenes support, and he's a general business counselor at the Small Business and Technology Development Center, where he helps make small businesses better by providing them access to counseling, training, and resources. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike for just a second so he can let us know how we're going to be using Zoom today and what to expect.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. And of course, no noise all week until right now when there's some sort of truck outside my window. So hopefully not too distracting. But yes, welcome to Triple Threat. As Lisa said, great to be back for 2021. So just a couple tech related housekeeping items for y'all that are joining us today. Feel free to use the chat to say hi to others and request if you do have any technical issues, you can hit us up there as well. And I'll make sure to monitor that. If you want to chat with the other attendees that are on as well today, make sure to hit the to all panelists and attendees in the chat to make sure you're chatting with everybody. If you want to submit a question, so if anyone's new to Triple Threat, we usually at the end, the last 10, 15 minutes or so, we'll have a Q&A portion. So if you want to submit a question for our panelists to answer for either one or all of them, you can use the Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom screen and type in a question there, and we'll make sure we get to it. You can also switch between speaker view and gallery view if you want to see just the active speaker on the screen or all of the panelists and our moderator, Lisa, today. And then last thing is if you want to click on those three dots next to anyone whose video is not being shown right now, you can click hide non-video participants to make sure it's just those who got their video up on the screen to make your viewing experience even better. So with that, back to Lisa.
Okay, sounds good. So we're going to start with a little intro because not everybody knows each other, and also not everybody attending knows who all the panelists are. So we're going to start with, we're going to rotate between each of you. First, you're going to answer, who are you? What do you do? And the icebreaker question today is, do you identify as an introvert, an extrovert, or an ambivert? And what does that term mean to you? So let's start with Brianna.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Hi, I'm Brianna Daniels. What do? I do the most. I'm doing all of the things all of the time. I make jewelry. I work with crystals and copper and other natural materials to make adornments that support and uplift what you're working on, what you're working towards, and what you're working through. I'm also a theater professional. I'm often acting or doing some technical theater work, lighting, costumes, sound making, makeup, production. I do all of those things. I'm also a yoga instructor, a Reiki practitioner, and I love to cook. So I host a lot of dinner parties pre-COVID with my friends, using a variety of, ingredients from gardens and that my friends have, and other plant medicines. So
lovely. Yes. And do you identify as an ambivert, introvert, or extrovert?
Ambivert.
Okay. And what does that mean to you?
That means that I love the people. I love like everything I'm doing all of the time is really thinking about my connections in my community. And also I love to be by myself. I love silence. I love being in my curated spaces, and can move through both spaces pretty easily. And depending on circumstances, will be in one position of introversion or extroversion. Yeah.
And it's so great because it's probably a new term for some people. Other people know that term. So I think it's fun to start with you because it is kind of an interesting place to hold. I know during COVID, so many people, think about life has changed and there are things that we can't draw on like we normally do. And I think, that looks different for introverts, extroverts, and ambiverts. Like how we're all having to shift is, harder and easier in different ways. So now let's go to Chris.
Hey guys, happy Friday again to me and Brianna. My name is Chris Wright and I'm the founder of Whystle, which some fun news this week. We actually were acquired at the beginning of this month, so super pumped about that. I identify as an extrovert, and to me, that means that I get my energy from being around other people. Don't get me wrong, like every once in a while, I love some R&R, but if I had to choose between like going out and getting drinks with people that I enjoy pre-COVID or sitting at home alone, it would always be the drinks. For me, kind of the most important thing and most exciting thing in life is to meet awesome people and continue to build my network and expand and surround myself with people that I love being around. Everyone's got a story to tell. Everyone's got something to teach you. And if you go into every conversation from a place of being interested instead of trying to be interesting, then you'll always win. So that's kind of me.
And can you tell everybody the business that just got acquired, what it is?
Oh yeah, sorry.
I mean, you said the name, but just
yeah.
get a context.
Yeah, so Whystle started as an on-demand cleaning service. Think Uber meets Molly Maids, and we had an app where you can book from. It was meant to provide a no BS experience for people trying to keep their homes healthy and clean. You can book from your app. You knew what you're going to pay. There was no contracts, and it pivoted into commercial disinfection and janitorial during COVID. But the residential business made a comeback, which led to an acquisition at the beginning part of this year.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer.
All right. Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. We can't say that enough times.
Exactly.
My name is Jennifer Sockeye. I identify as an introvert. For me, that means that kind of the opposite of Chris. I get my energy from my alone time. It does not mean that I don't like people. I just prefer one-on-one or very small group connections. And as the group gets larger, my energy goes downhill a lot faster. So it takes a lot more for me. And I tend to want to still engage in a big group with just somebody one-on-one. I think also, for me as an introvert, one of the things that I look at that is that I do a lot of processing inside my head that maybe extroverts do out loud. So that's why I think, introverts have the reputation as being quiet. Shy is not a good word to use for introverts because that's wrong, that we're not necessarily shy, but I'm doing the thinking inside my head that an introvert might be doing speaking out loud. So I own a business, Caregiving Corner. We work with older adults and their families to help them navigate caregiving and identify all of the resources that they need to plan for aging or to handle crisis situations. So I'm a problem solver.
I know it keeps you on your toes. She's got
some
really good stories to tell when you have time to have a coffee with Jennifer.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, connection and community is really looking different this last year. And I always think, like, if something's a burning question for me, like how are people handling it during this time? It's probably a burning question for other entrepreneurs. And I know I've struggled with figuring out like how to create connection and community during this time. So I really wanted to draw from you guys and really hear also the perspectives of introvert, extrovert, ambivert, because I think that's so critical when we talk about energy. Zoom is a very specific tool, but it also can be draining for anybody. And so, it's also, I think, has people limit like how, or be selective how they're using Zoom time. But I really thought, let's go past Zoom is still a tool, and I'm sure it'll be touched on, but I really want to go past like the traditional ways that I think most of us know that we're using to connect. And so these questions today are going to be both personally and professionally. Like, we're a whole person. We want real talk. We know that want to hear good, bad, and ugly, not just, you know, the bright and shiny, how things are so positive. So let's get started with, you know, the question of, what do you miss most about in-person connection and community? Because that's really the backdrop of what we're up against here. So let's start with you, Jennifer.
Okay. So, this may sound cheesy, but this is professional and personal. I miss hugs. I miss close physical contact. For our clients, we hug them to reassure them that things are going to be okay. We are with people, you know, in very challenging situations where they need a hand on the shoulder, they need someone holding their hand to go up a step, to know that they're going to be safe. And so that the lack of that physical contact makes it very difficult. And I think the same applies for Zoom. I love being able to see people and stay connected, but it's not the same as the in-person experience. I also think that, and I don't think that this is unique to being an introvert, but I pay a lot of attention to people's body language. And so, and you can't even see my hand right now, but my hand is moving ferociously as I'm talking. But, you know, when we're stuck with this box of what we can see, it's sometimes difficult to fully understand what somebody's body language, you know, is telling you. So being in that close proximity, and then just, you know, personally being prevented from not being able to hug my mom. That's been challenging. So
yeah, definitely. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, this has been tough. I, you know, very similar to Jennifer, the physical contact is a big thing, but the thing that kills me, I love Zoom for some reasons, right? I'm able to connect with people that I might not be able to connect with normally because they're in a different location, they're not in Charlotte, et cetera. But I have been making a big push the last 2 years, which is kind of ironic because I'm in a little bit of the technology company, or I was, but I've been taking a big push to like step away from technology, right? So like not use my phone, not use my computer, like whenever I can just be present and in the moment with people, then I'm in my happy place, right? And I'm working on that hard, and it's like, it's very easy unless you are very intentional, that if you have your computer open in Zoom and you get these notifications, these pop-ups all the time that are trying to steal your attention away from what you're doing, it's so much harder to be intentional about just connecting with people. And in-person connection is kind of where one-on-ones are like my favorite. I like big groups, but like if I can sit down and have a drink or a coffee with somebody one-on-one and like really get to know them and truly like listen, not just talk, right? I miss that so much. It sucks.
Yeah. How about you, Brianna?
I miss dancing. I miss dancing so much. I think dancing is one of my first languages. It's like the way that I articulate a lot of my feelings and how I connect with people. That's how I build my community often, is through dance. And I was dancing pre-COVID at an event, like dancing and vending my jewelry at least 3 times a week. And that is different now. So I can feel it in my body and feel it in my spirit, how that kind of communion and practice has shifted. And I miss it dearly. I think about it all day, all the time. I'm like, dang, I just wish I could just be in a group of, you know, people doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Minding my business as well together, you know, around the same like groove or, you know, song. I really miss that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it is one of those things where, you know, there's certain activities you can try to replicate, but you can't, because the energy, the in-person energy is so specific. You know, it's like hearing audio over Zoom versus at a live concert. Like, it's just 2 different worlds. Doesn't mean you can't appreciate things about it, but that in-person experience, especially when you've got the surround of the sound, plus you get the movement, plus you get the energy of a group of people together in the same kind of vibe.
Right.
I can imagine, especially that you did that 3 days a week, plus you were also vending. So you had both the personal and professional very tied into something that's so integral to you. So
Yeah. And I just miss being by a really big speaker and feeling like the air come off of a speaker, like the sound air. I miss that. I'm tired of DJing my own dance parties. I don't want to do that.
Yes.
Yes.
So all of this begs the question, like, how are you staying connected to the people in the communities that you were already a part of prior to COVID? So let's jump right back to you, Brianna, since you're in that zone.
Well, so in the beginning of the quarantine, I have friends like all down the East Coast and all over, and mostly around dance, like me vending my jewelry, or, you know, being part of the samba community, or house music, dancing, and all of these types of things. So a lot of people in those communities initially were like, okay, well, we miss dancing. Let's have a dance party on Zoom. And so I was able to participate in like 24-hour dance parties where I was like in my house or on my porch and, you know, dancing with my friends who live in New York or live in California. And that was sweet. Then that kind of dissipated, and I guess people were having Zoom fatigue, so those options weren't as available. So then gratefully, Sanctuary in the City, it's a local community, online community, and in real-time community whenever that's available again. They host a lot of healing sessions. So they have yoga once a week, meditations, classes. I recently took an Ayurveda class, a breathwork class that I take every Saturday. It's BIPOC only, and it's fiscally accessible. So most of the sessions are free, but they always accept donations. And that's been a way to keep movement in my life and community, but it's definitely, alongside my own personal modalities and practices, like enriched my own personal experience as a healer, caretaker, creative artist, in that way, just sustaining my wellness there. Yeah.
How about you, Chris? Stay connected to existing communities you were a part of or people prior?
Yeah. Professionally, I mean, in the beginning it was tough, right? Quarantine hit, and I get most of my energy from being around people, and like all of a sudden, I mean, I was still going into the office, but like there was no one else there, right? So I'm like completely alone with whoever runs the office, and it was tough. And even my team, like everyone worked remotely. I didn't obviously force anyone to come to the office, so people chose to work remotely, which I completely am cool with. But like just being in the same space as my team and bouncing ideas off each other is like similar to what Brianna was saying. Just the vibe of being in the same space and being on the same wavelength as people. I freaking miss that. That was But the way that I've kind of come out of it is that over time, I've really, really pushed on Zoom meetings. And I know that we're not talking just about Zoom, but I've really pushed on like once a week, I'm meeting with one new person that I don't know, like every single week. That's always been a goal of mine, is like, and I don't go in with any expectations. It's not like I'm trying to sell them anything. I hope that they're not trying to sell me anything. I'm just meeting with one new person each week and building that connection. And then over time, I kind of set up some regularly cadenced meetings, like happy hours or drinks over Zoom, that like once a month I'd get together with certain groups of people and drink with them over Zoom. And then eventually we kind of got comfortable doing like socially distanced drinks, right? So you're kind of outside, you're sitting 6 feet apart. I remember I met a friend at like a park, and we were sitting like 10 feet apart and just like like cheers. It was, I don't know, it's the little things, right? It felt good to do it. And then personally, same thing with friends. I mean, none of my friends want to get on a Zoom whenever they've been on Zooms with their work all day. So like, I've just made it a point to just call people randomly, right? So like, no expectation, there's no meeting, nothing set up, not a schedule. I just like randomly call people. Anytime I'm in the car, I'm calling somebody different, because that's a time when like I'm not really doing anything else. It's ambient transient time, so I'm just try to get on the phone and call random people, whether it's friends, family, business people, whatever I can do. And then I've been a part of several groups during this time that meet on a regular cadence, whether it's the mastermind group or I was a part of Accelerator for a while and I stayed in touch with everyone in there. So I've been doing whatever I can to try to build that connection virtually, which, as Brianna alluded to, is freaking hard. But
yeah. And I think that the thing that I do hear about the Zoom stuff is, being intentional. So like, you're not trying to pack your day with Zoom meetings and you're not trying to pack other people's days, but when you are able to do something where you can see them, it does feel a little closer. And then of course, knowing that the friends that are on Zoom all day, like I love that, just switching to phone. And, at this point, unless I need to show a client something and share my screen, a lot of times I'll say, do you want to do phone or video? Because it just gives people a break if they need it.
Yeah.
But no, I think that, being conscious, I think that's what I hear the most is like, you're being conscious of being intentional, staying connected, but also where other people are at with their energy, with Zoom and other things.
I agree. And just to kind of piggyback on that, like my friends will all tell you I'm the absolute worst texter that they've ever met. Like if you need to get a hold of me, you have to call me, because like I will not answer text messages for months. And I didn't always used to be like this. My wife is like that. Her phone will just turn off. And like for 3 or 4 days, she won't even try to charge it. She doesn't know where it is. She's like, don't care. If somebody needs to talk to me, they'll come find me. Right. So I've started to adopt that because I love it. I personally hate texting. I would rather always hear someone's voice. Yeah. Always. So that's another thing I've done that's helped.
Yeah. Jennifer, how are you staying connected?
Well, it's funny because I will look at a phone ringing and wonder why the person is not texting me. So, I think normally by the end of the day, I'm usually drained with work phone calls. And so, it's hard for me to be interested in having longer conversations. So the one good thing is that, when work for us kind of stopped very abruptly when we couldn't get into care facilities to see our clients. And, but that all of a sudden I thought, well, now I have this time and the mental space and energy to be able to pick up the phone and have an hour-long conversation with my friend when I can't get to see them and things like that. So I've been trying to do that. But I will say that it wasn't very obvious from the beginning. I think in the very beginning, I think we were all probably like, what is going on? What is this about? What's happening? And so it didn't immediately click with me. I mean, I had to kind of work at, oh gosh, I'm not going to be able to see this person every 3 months. We go away for a girls' weekend and I'm not going to have that anymore for a while. And so I need to be in touch with this person, that kind of thing. So it's definitely been challenging. And as work has picked back up, starting last summer, I just eased into this comfort with all of the professional contacts that I have who are my close friends, because we are working together constantly. And that's been good to even see them just at a distance. But yeah, like Chris, we've done a lot of whip out the measuring tape and social distance in the driveway to figure out how we can share a cocktail together and be safe, but still have that in-person connection. So yeah, I think it's been important.
And I know Chris, the mastermind, started during COVID, the incubator or what was it called? Was it incubator?
It's an accelerator. It was actually
so that was already
like an incubator, but yeah.
Yeah. And then I happen to know Jennifer and I are in the same mastermind group that's been going for like 2 years. So can you talk a little bit about having a structure that was pre-existing going into COVID and like what that's been like for you, Jennifer?
Yeah. I would say that was very helpful. I was also serving in a board capacity for our national association. And so we were already having monthly Zoom meetings, and for those to still continue and for us to be able to support one another and hear from one another in different parts of the country, what was going on, with our respective businesses, was very comforting. And I would say the same thing with Mastermind. I mean, it was sad to not be able to meet in person, but it sort of provided some structure. And I mean, there were plenty of weeks where we were slowed down, where it was like, gosh, Mastermind's the only thing I'm going to calendar. So it gave me something to look forward to. It gave me a reason to wear real clothes. It just, it provided some sense of normalcy. Even if we spent the mastermind kind of wondering what the world was going to be like, the next time we met, it still provided some sense that, okay, there's still things happening, even though this is all going on around us.
Yeah, for me personally, I would love to chime in because I'm actually in 3 masterminds. And for me, what it was great was having other entrepreneurs hearing that they're struggling too. And like everybody was different. Some people have kids, some people don't, some people working from home, some people lose their job. There's all these different things that or work slow to a halt. And so I think that, having that sense of, oh, I'm not going crazy. Like there's a lot of other people who were on that same roller coaster made such a huge difference. And I'm grateful that I was already a part of 2 of them, but what it did was it helped me see, oh, and having a 3rd one added would also be a really unique value because each one's on a different area. So that's how I met Chris, was in the Advent Mastermind. And it just really added another element of getting to see people I didn't know yet, and also deepening relationships with people I already knew through Advent. So let's now talk a little bit about how you're, meeting new people or finding new communities during this. Chris touched a little bit on meeting new people once a week. Brianna talked about, I don't know if you were involved with Sanctuary before, but you've gotten very involved on a weekly basis. So how are you all, let's start with Chris. How are you meeting new people, given that you're not just bumping into people or you're not casually being introduced at a gathering, whether it's business or professional? How are you going about it?
It's been a really mixed bag, honestly. It's I have to say it's like it's all intentional, right? So I had to be intentional because I didn't have kind of what you were alluding to before and talking about the pre-built-in set regiments, right? I had my routines was like, okay, what days do I have free this evening that I'm not like doing something with my wife? And what days can I have drinks with people? And I would just slot people in, right? It's like, hey, are you free next Friday? Are you free this Thursday? Whatever. So I've just had to be really intentional. I've reached out to random people. Random people have reached out to me, and I'm sure they're trying to sell me something, but I'm like, I don't care. I'm still going to talk to you and see if we can build a relationship. And at the end of the call, I'm be like, hey, I'm probably not going to buy your product, but let's grab drinks sometime because I like you.
Are you finding them? How are you finding these people, these random people you're saying?
So usually through previous connections. So like through people I know or communities I'm a part of, or I'll say like, a lot of it happens from business, right? I'm looking for something, some help on some specific thing or some advice on something. And I'll ask my network and they'll say, hey, does anyone know somebody that's involved in this? And then they'll introduce me to that person. Then I'll usually almost always ask whenever I meet somebody, hey, is there anyone else you think that based on what you know about what I'm doing that I should connect with? And then it just kind of self-perpetuates, right? So over time, it just builds and builds and builds and snowballs, and you stay up with all those people that you've built connections with because you're truly going in there because you're interested in them again, not because you're trying to be interesting. You're not trying to sell them anything. I don't have any expectations. It's just you stay up with those people because you actually enjoyed their company. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say that it sounds very random and not very followable, but like just find people on LinkedIn in communities you're a part of, or find people in your current community and say, hey, is there anyone else that you connect with regularly that you think it'd be cool for me to connect with? Mm-hmm. And then just nurture those relationships. Treat them like you're trying to build a friendship, which in my opinion, I do, right? Like I'm always trying to build those friendships. It's not just because we met in a business setting doesn't mean that I'm trying to keep this very business formal, right?
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of, I don't want to say blurred lines because I don't necessarily know that there's lines. I think that there's a cross-pollination between personal and business. Like how many times, has a client of mine become a friend or a friend become a client, like it's kind of seamless, like they might start in one place, but they usually end up, both living together. So Brianna, let's hear a little bit from you, how you're meeting new people during this time or new communities.
I would say it started with me minding my business.
Exact opposite of Chris.
Right. So it's like, oh, what do I like? Like when I'm not having to express and expel as often, like digging into my interest and then finding spaces where those concepts or those, like I really love science fiction, Black science fiction. I really love ecological, studies and, herbalism, things like that. So digging into like my personal interest in finding offerings online that were, free, accessible, meeting people there. And then, sometimes people put you in a group and then you guys meet and you're like, oh, I just adore this person and now we're friends. That's happened several times throughout COVID, the time of COVID. I've taken I don't even know how many classes. I've been in so many retreats on Zoom. I've taken a 200-hour yoga teacher training. I'm in a 300-hour. The 200-hour was global. So it was 2,400 yogis around the world coming to learn about yoga, and met just friends and people who are going to be a part of my life forever. I went to a Black artist retreat, met people who were in Kenya. I was being able to see a Kenyan sunrise every time we met.
That's amazing.
And having the opportunity to interact with people there has been enriching, in also giving me plenty of space to turn off my Zoom camera whenever I need a moment from, being seen or seeing people. I can just I'll just hear the audio or something like that. Yeah. Those are some of the ways.
That's great. How about you, Jennifer?
I don't know. I don't know that I've really made a lot of connections with new people.
Okay.
I think that's been a struggle. I think there have been times, I guess recently for business purposes, that I'm trying to connect with some folks. And I'm, emailing to see if we can set up a Zoom, which is not really, how I would prefer to do it, obviously. Yeah. But I would say that maybe the thing, instead of new people, I guess there were some times that I was really surprised at the depth of the relationship or connectivity that I felt with someone who was already there. I think that this time has kind of reshuffled people around a little bit. And so, there were times where it was like, wow, this group of people or this person, is somebody that's really been supportive or been easy to talk to during this time, or has been really willing to come hang out in my driveway and, drink some wine or, whatever the case might be. And so I think for me, it hasn't really been new people, except maybe it's new to the inner circle, if you will, of, maybe recognizing, that there are some people that are I'm closer to than I realized I was, which has been a good thing.
That's great. And going back to what Brianna said about, using your interests to sort of guide, I'll add a quick anecdote as an fellow introvert, Jennifer. I unexpectedly have made new friendships through some online Facebook groups, which I never thought in social media would be the way, but really getting involved in a couple online groups. I've been exploring niche and natural perfumery. And so one of the women that I've connected with, we've actually become friends in real life. She lives in San Francisco and, I live here on the East Coast. And it's been great because we check in frequently, not just on the perfume front, but on the personal front. And it's been fascinating how you can actually take an online, seemingly superficial exchange that can turn into a real life friendship. And I never dreamed that was possible. It just never occurred to me. It's never happened for me. So I'm curious if there's anything in the social media realm that has sparked something new for you guys.
Absolutely. Just being on Instagram is how I found out about the yoga teacher training.
Okay.
I was really just, mindlessly scrolling or, doing what I do whenever you're on the phone, and saw that was available. And that's how I got connected to that particular offering. And then Same with the dance parties in the beginning of the year. Same with the artist retreat. Someone tagged me and said, I think you should go there. You're always looking to connect with other artists. And also you need a break,
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the connections I already have that, directed me there too.
I think that's one thing that, we may turn into a triple threat panel topic at some time, but there is the thing about pursuing interest outside of the business. It sounds like, Brianna, yours are there's a lot of intersection, which is amazing and lovely. And you have so many things that you're involved with. But I think for some of us, sometimes we can get just tunnel vision on business, even though we want a rich life. And there's something about pursuing interest and not having an agenda of where it leads, and just being open and having our antenna up. And for both of us, it seems like social media has been a tool that actually led to some stuff that we weren't necessarily expecting. So that's great. So let's do a quick check-in now on the ambivert, introvert, extrovert, and see what are the ways that the way you identify has made it easier, and what are some of the ways it's made it harder in the last year. And we can just do real quick on this, but I'm just curious if there's been some surprising maybe benefits for you.
I'll go first. I feel like as an introvert, this is the holy grail of events. I feel like I've been training my entire life to be in a pandemic and stuck at home. So I don't know if I get a gold medal or what, but yeah, it's been bliss in many ways. I mean, obviously there have been some downsides, but I would say that, the positive is that I have really been able to recharge my batteries, and I do that alone or with my family. And so to not have work that I can do and be able to do that, has been a little bit easier. I will also say, though, it's been a little bit harder because, again, as an introvert, I feel like I depend on those personal connections and that physical connection, being able to hug somebody, at least if we met for coffee, I'd want to give you a hug because we're friends. And not being able to do that takes a little bit away from that. So I would say that that's the hardest part, is that I still just don't feel like the connection's quite there yet. That's it.
How about you, Chris?
So I'll talk about the good news first, the easier part.
Sure.
So the good news is that, or the easier part is that, because where I get my energy from and where I kind of thrive is by being around people, it's forced me to figure it out, right? To figure out a way to build those connections, to still have that, that human contact whenever it wasn't so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, like, some surprising benefits is, like, I'm from New York. I learned how to drive in New York. I personally hate driving. So, like, being able to, like, do something in a Zoom meeting and still have some kind of connection, but not having to get in my car has been amazing. I mean, like, I just get it. It's like the only place I'm aggressive in the world is when I'm behind a steering wheel. And then all of a sudden the angry New Yorker comes out at me and I start screaming at people and, like, honking the horn. I probably honk the horn more than most people in Charlotte. So it's better if I'm not on the road. Another surprising benefit is that I've been able to get into communities and to do things that would have normally been location dependent, right? So like for instance, I was in that accelerator. I've built like a pretty good network in Raleigh, but I know these people, like, we talk about personal stuff, they're friends, but, like, I've never physically seen them, right? Like, we've never been in the same space before. And I wouldn't have probably been able to do that, or at least have that on my radar, if it wasn't for this experience. On the flip side of that coin, the tough thing is that because I get my energy from being around people, I've had to kind of face some inner demons, if you will, and realize that, like, it's okay to be alone. It's okay to be with yourself. And if you're kind of like me and you've always had, like, a wall of people to keep you from who you really are, right? I've had to start breaking down that wall, and it's good because it pointed out a very clear weakness of myself. But I'm getting better now through this in being alone and getting solitude and meditating, journaling, doing all those things that fuel your soul, right? I was doing some of that before, but it was, like, purely for I'm going to be on my A game shit, right? No, it's like, I'm doing this so I can be with me, right? Which is something that I've had to figure out, which has been actually a benefit, but it's been tough.
Yeah. How about you, Brianna?
Chris, I'm just so excited for you. That made me so happy.
I might be coming over to the ambivert side.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel it,
I love it. I love it. The question is, tell me the question again.
Well, what are some of the ways of being an ambivert that it's been easier during this time, and what are some of the ways it's been more challenging, or just some surprising benefits? Any of the above.
I'll go with challenging first.
Okay.
Because I'm a jewelry vendor, on top of like having a website and things like that, it has been a bit more difficult to increase my revenue, because I'm tech aware, but I'm not tech savvy. It's really just like, I know how to do the stuff, but I don't know how to finesse the things. So I'm learning those things.
Yeah.
And being in real time is just kind of where I shine. Often in regards to, being able to look at a piece of jewelry, put it on, wear it on your body. Also like dancing, that's how a lot of my connections had come up. People being like, you're so much fun and I love dancing with you. And then them finding out all of the things that I do and then wanting to participate in any of these modalities. Also, no shade to my housemates. However, I was the person who worked from home. So I was used to being at home for at least 6 hours by myself, and that changed. And then also seeing how they work in time, audibly, like I like silence. I want to hear the hums of the refrigerator and the birds outside.
Yeah.
And maybe some binaural beats in the background. My friends really like a party while they're working. And that's just, an adjustment that I had to make. I got some noise canceling headphones. I'd close my shades and things like that. One of the treats is that I do have more time to mind my business, being in transit all the time, having to tote. I literally carry rocks.
Yeah.
And they're heavy. Carrying rocks around is not something that I have to do anymore. Being able to read.
Mm-hmm.
I love to read. I love to listen to books. I love to, and I have more time for that. I have time to take care of plants, which is like, I love it. Take care of plants and cook a meal. These are just like, oh yeah. These are things that I've always wanted to do, but because of the way that, because of the life that I've structured for myself, it kind of didn't have as much space to kind of flourish or blossom in the same way. So I appreciate that the space. Yeah, I appreciate the space that this time is lent.
So the last question before we get to the Q&A is, what do you think? So we've had constraints in the last year, right? But there's been some surprising benefits. So what are the things that you think you will continue once things have opened up a lot more? And let's go with Brianna.
I will continue to take classes online. I used to not be excited about them. But I've learned, I've gotten a college education. Like I've earned a degree throughout this year from all of the studies that I've been able to participate in. And yeah, I learned how to like propagate mushrooms and, all of these things. I will continue to learn online as a route for education because I love to study. I will continue a yoga home practice. I had been outsourcing my yoga practice, going to studios and things like that, but I really do love being in my extra room with, some LED lights and moving my body in that way. Mm-hmm. I will continue to have my own personal dance parties, and I will continue to schedule my time, schedule my time just for me. Before I do anything, before I talk to anybody throughout the day, I give myself at least 4 hours to myself. And then I also schedule like my nighttime, like I'm going to stop working at 7 and I'm going to actually go to bed or get in like my bedtime routine around 11 and then be asleep, by midnight if I can.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Jennifer, what are you going to continue?
I think I'm going to continue with as much as I can, the family time. Mm-hmm. I've got 2 school-age daughters, and being able to spend this time with them, they have driven me crazy many times, but but being able to I guess, be in a position where we had to find new things to do together has been really rewarding. So to the extent that they'll be interested in continuing that, I don't know, but I definitely, want to continue focusing on and kind of prioritizing that quality time with them that, I didn't have as much of previously.
Yeah. How about you, Chris?
You guys all said some really great things, and I'm actually going to steal some of them because I hadn't thought of them before, but that is something that I'm doing so like, for instance, Brianna, you had mentioned scheduling time for yourself, which, as I was mentioning just before, like, yes, I've like planned out my day and I literally like schedule meetings with myself. Like, good luck getting any time in there, because that's kind of me time. Also learning online. My wife signed us up for a master class. And so I've been taking lots of courses and stuff that honestly I didn't think I was interested in, and have become interested in some of this stuff. And then beyond that, kind of not limiting my network to what's local. I think it's great that there is a local network, but like, I've built relationships now in Raleigh and different parts of the country that if it weren't for COVID and I wasn't kind of hunkered down, I probably wouldn't have even looked or tried to have those relationships or been open to them, because I'm like, well, if we can't sit down and have a drink, then like, how are we going to build this relationship? But I've got some like pretty good friends that I've never been in the same room with now. So yeah. And beyond that, I don't know how I'm going to figure this one out, because once things open back up, like, I'm going to kind of be forced, but like figure out a way not to drive as much. I don't think that that's like a true reality going forward, but like, automated cars come because I want them. I don't want to have to do anything when I'm in the car. So yeah, that's probably what I'll keep with me.
Yeah. Well, welcome back, Mike. We're gonna let Mike lead the Q&A now portion before we close things out. So if anybody has any questions for the panelists, you can, ask a specific panelist a question, or you can ask the same question, and anyone who has a great answer can. Well, I won't even put the pressure of a great answer. Who has an answer? There's no rating the answer here. So does anyone have any questions? And Mike will navigate us through those.
Cool. Yeah. And we do have a couple I'm going to get to here. But I just want to say I loved listening to all of you and your different perspectives. And I, as a self-proclaimed ambivert over here as well, I was like finding myself relating to all of you in different ways. And like, depending on the mood or the kind of the weather or whatever is going on, I might feel more like one of you and more like the other. So just really cool perspectives. I appreciate it. Couple questions that came up. So one, Brianna, you may have mentioned this during the conversation, but someone wanted to know what the name of your business is.
My jewelry business is Cosmosis Stones. So Cosmos is stones.
Cool.
.com. Then Space is the Place Yogi is my yoga and Reiki business.
Very
but you
cool.
can find me most easily on Cosmosis Stones.
So
okay, cool.
I'm going to pop that into the chat for everybody.
Sounds good. And Brianna, while I've got you unmuted, I got one more directed towards you. Someone had asked, so do you see a continuation of virtual education opportunities once we're able to gather in person? I know you kind of hit on that with the last question, but anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, if it's available, I'm probably going to take the class. I enjoy taking classes with my friends, us like kind of scheduling our time and be like, hey, I saw this, there was an herbalism class. You want to take this class with me? I recently took a class with my friend Kolea, and we learned about liniments. And I was like, I never heard of a liniment. I'm glad we're learning this together. And now we're going to practice some of these herbalism techniques and make medicines together. Yeah.
Cool. I like that. It's emphasizing the community aspect of learning together, which is very interesting. I just thought I'd give anyone else an opportunity. Chris, I know you were just talking about masterclass. Is there any plan to continue learning and educating yourself beyond COVID when we get past it?
Yeah, 100%. I've started I'm one of those people who kind of lives by their calendar, which I hate and I love, because I've got friends who want to grab drinks and I'm like, hey man, you didn't put it on my calendar. I don't know what's happening. Right. So Yeah, I plan on doing that, and I'm putting calendar time to like go on masterclass every day or to do some kind of learning every single day. So like I track different things. I track if I meditate, if I exercise, if I journal, and if I learn. Learn is always a big one. So as long as I'm learning something every day, then yes. But I'm going to continue doing masterclass. I love masterclass.
Yeah.
Couldn't recommend it enough. It's awesome.
That's great. Yeah. And I love the habit tracking aspect of it too, just to kind of stay honest and stay consistent with it. Cool. Question that came up for Jennifer is, how are you feeling about the end of the pandemic? As an introvert, do you have any concerns about the change back to a more social life or social world and how that may drain your battery? Again, I know you kind of touched on that too with that last question, but anything you want to add to that?
Right. No, I definitely, I mean, I'm really looking forward to being able to get together with people, comfortably again and getting back to one-on-ones, and connect with people that way. But I do kind of have in the back of my head that, if I'm not careful and let myself kind of get back into the grind of things, I might find myself in situations where I am in some of those, high draining events. But I feel like we've learned enough ways to stay connected that I'm hopeful that I can be just more mindful of having a good balance going forward, and not put myself in a situation where I've drained myself completely.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like a good takeaway. So that was all the questions that we had submitted. And my last question is, I always like to get one in there, is just what is a good takeaway from you all specifically around this topic? Like you have all shared so much about kind of how you've been able to adapt and maybe how some things were congruent with what you were doing before, and for others, how things have gotten shaken up. Do you all want to just take an opportunity for 30 seconds to a minute to just share, like, what's a big takeaway that's something that's adjusted for you that you're going to take with you going forward, regardless of what the external environment is throwing at us?
I think the takeaway for me is,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. The takeaway for me is learning new things. I mean, I think we've all been in a position where we've picked up new habits, new coping strategies, and been able to look at our kind of strengths and weaknesses, no matter which perspective we're looking at this from, to figure out what works for us in these weird times and what doesn't. So I think being open to, to trying new things and learning new strategies for yourself is key.
Yeah, I love that. How about Brianna next? Go ahead.
All right. I would like to tell everyone that time is your tool and that you get to create the pace that you want to be moving at. And in your time, make time for yourself. You're important.
Yeah, great message. Thank you. Chris, how about you?
I got 3 and I'll do them really quickly. So number 1, focus on being interested instead of interesting. That was huge for me this year. Go into relationships with little to no expectations. Don't try to want anything from them, and don't try to give them anything. Just go into it with no expectations and see where it goes. And then number 3 is, like, don't be afraid to reach out to people for any reason, right? What you'll find, at least in my experience, is that not only in Charlotte but elsewhere, people are all craving the same thing you're craving, right? They want some kind of human connection. Because we're all going through the same thing, regardless of how we identify ambivert, extrovert, introvert, we're all wanting that, right? We still want that human connection. So I think that just reach out to people. People are open to talk. You'd be surprised. I've reached out to some people that I thought were like unreachable, and they got on a call with me for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. I love the message too, of just being open and lowering expectations and just allowing the room to converse and connect and just see where things go organically. And I think that's something we all struggle with right now, but it's nice to have that reminder. So awesome. Those are all the questions we had. Lisa, I'll throw it back to you to close this out.
Yeah, just thank you all so much for participating by asking questions, for our panelists, for, creating their perspective and sharing it with us. And I really just appreciate us having this format. So I want to thank Advent Co-working for creating a space for us to have this kind of event and to pick a topic that seems relevant for so many people. So thanks, Advent. And we'll be scheduling another one. We're not doing them every month anymore. We're spacing them out a little bit more because of Zoom fatigue. But we're really, excited to continue to bring topics that are relevant for people. So if you guys have any topics that you think are kind of universal for entrepreneurs, that you think people would be helpful at this time, please submit them to us. You can, put it in the chat right now, or you can reach out to info@adventcoworking.com and just say, hey, I have an idea for triple threat panel. Because, we do want this to be something where we all get to continue to benefit and find things that will move us all forward so we can learn and grow. So thank you all.
Thank you for having us. This was fun.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
You all.
You guys are great.
Have a good weekend. Happy